Have you ever noticed how life seems to play a game with you? For weeks, maybe even months, you feel completely aligned. The universe feels like it's speaking directly to you through signs, patterns, and synchronicities that appear everywhere you look. Numbers line up perfectly on clocks and receipts. The right people appear at the right time, and conversations you overhear echo the exact thoughts in your head. It feels like the world is alive, whispering to you, guiding you, assuring you that you're exactly where you're meant to be. And then, almost overnight, the signs vanish. The numbers stop repeating, the chance encounters disappear, and the invisible current you were riding seems to dissolve into silence. At first you brush it off, but the longer it goes, the more uneasy you feel. You begin to wonder if you did something wrong, if you slipped out of alignment, if you've been abandoned by the very universe that only days ago seemed to be showering you with guidance. That drop from constant confirmation to absolute stillness can be jarring, and most people panic in that gap. But the truth is, this silence is not a punishment. It is not emptiness, it is a doorway. It is the exact moment where the old rhythm of your life pauses so a new one can begin. Imagine you're listening to a symphony. The music swells, the melody carries you higher and higher, and then suddenly, nothing. The instruments stop. The air becomes thick with anticipation. Every listener leans forward, waiting, holding their breath, knowing that what comes after this silence will be more powerful than everything before it. That pause is not the end of the song. It is the most critical part of it. Without the silence, the crescendo has no meaning. Without the stillness, the impact is lost. In the same way, when synchronicities stop appearing, you're not being cut off from guidance. You're in the pause before the crescendo. You're in that potent stillness where reality is drawing in its breath before releasing something extraordinary. The silence is not a void, it is pressure building behind the scenes. It is the exact moment when the field reorganizes itself around your next quantum leap. Most people interpret silence as absence because they're used to equating signs with progress. If the signs are flowing, things are moving. If the signs vanish, then surely something is wrong. But that's only because we've been conditioned to measure the invisible with visible markers. The truth is, the moment the signs go quiet is the moment when the most is happening beneath the surface. Think about the seed beneath the soil. For weeks it lies hidden, unseen, giving no proof that anything is happening. If you judged by sight alone, you'd say nothing is growing. But in reality, everything is happening. Roots are forming, structures are building, life is expanding. The silence before the sprout is not failure, it is foundation. And here's the paradox. That silence, as uncomfortable as it feels, is the signal that your shift is nearer than ever. The universe does not abandon you in silence. It holds you there because the stillness itself is the initiation. If synchronicities never stopped, you'd become addicted to them. You'd start depending on the external to prove your internal state. And that is not mastery, that is dependency. The silence forces you to trust without crutches. It teaches you to embody your alignment, even when no breadcrumbs appear to reassure you. This is the universe saying, "You already know how to walk, now let go of my hand." So, when the signs go quiet, instead of panicking, realize where you are. You're not lost. You're standing in the pause before the crescendo. You're in the same space every great transformation passes through, the stillness that births the shift. This is the part of the symphony where the air thickens, the audience leans in, and the entire room holds its breath. You are in that breath right now, and the very fact that it feels so silent, so still, is your signal that the music is about to rise again, louder, bolder, and more powerful than anything that came before. In the quantum world, nothing shifts in a straight line. Before a particle becomes what it will be, it hovers in uncertainty, existing everywhere and nowhere all at once. It's called superposition, and it defies logic because it means reality doesn't commit until it absolutely has to. When synchronicities disappear from your life, you are entering that same quantum space. You are not stuck. You are suspended between two worlds, the one you've known and the one you are calling in. Your old timeline has not fully dissolved, and your new timeline has not yet crystallized. It's like standing with one foot on the shore and the other in the boat as the tide begins to turn. It feels unstable, like the ground is shifting, because in truth, it is. This is not the universe ignoring you. This is the universe reorganizing you, pulling apart the threads of your old reality so they can be rewoven into something new. The pause is the cocoon stage, and it often feels disorienting because transformation never looks like progress while it's happening. Think of it this way: when a caterpillar enters the cocoon, it doesn't simply sprout wings and fly away. Inside, it completely dissolves into a formless state, a soup of potential, where its old body is broken down before the new form takes shape. To anyone watching, it appears motionless, silent, almost lifeless. But inside that silence, a miracle is underway. That is exactly what happens in your life when the synchronicities stop. You are not abandoned, you are dissolving into potential. You are in the space between what was and what will be. The discomfort you feel is not failure, it is proof that the old identity is loosening its grip. The signs fade not because nothing is happening, but because too much is happening for the mind to track. This is the mystery of the in-between, the fertile void that precedes every leap into a new reality. And yet the human mind struggles with this stage more than any other. We are conditioned to trust what we can measure, to look for evidence that proves we are still on the right path. When synchronicities vanish, doubt surges because we've learned to equate silence with absence. But silence is not absence, it is reorganization. It is the deeper order moving pieces into place where you cannot see them. Just as a stage crew rearranges the scenery behind the curtain while the audience sits in quiet expectation, the universe uses silence as the curtain between acts. You may think nothing is happening, but behind the scenes, everything is being prepared for the next reveal. The problem arises when silence is misinterpreted. Most people assume they've lost alignment, and their panic pulls them out of coherence. They beg for signs, for numbers, for proof, and in doing so, they anchor themselves back in the old reality. But when you understand that silence is the sign, you break that cycle. The absence of synchronicity is not the loss of connection. It is the invitation to strengthen connection within yourself. It is the universe asking you to hold your frequency steady without external validation. That is how mastery is born. So the next time you enter this silence, notice what the mind tries to do. It scrambles for evidence, it whispers fears, it questions everything. But if you can see through the illusion, if you can recognize that what feels like nothing is actually everything, you step into true alignment. The illusion of disconnection dissolves. You realize you are not separate from the field simply because the breadcrumbs have stopped appearing. In fact, it is in this very moment that you are closest to the field. Because the space where you feel nothing is the same space where everything is being rewritten. The silence is not a void to escape. It is the womb of your new reality. And if you can trust it long enough, it will deliver you into the timeline you've been asking for all along. When you first begin walking this path, the universe gives you training wheels. The synchronicities that flood your life at the beginning are like a gentle hand holding the back of the bicycle, steadying you, showing you that you are supported. Those signs are reassurance, confirmation that your focus is aligned, that your energy is connecting with something greater than yourself. They are not random. They are the universe saying, yes, you're on track, keep going. But just as a child cannot learn to balance if the hand never lets go, you cannot step fully into your own power if synchronicities continue forever. At some point, the universe has to release the seat, the flow of numbers, the signs, the little winks from reality. They fade, not to punish you, but to see if you can maintain your alignment without them. This is not abandonment. This is empowerment. The silence is the signal that the training wheels have come off and that you are ready to hold your frequency without leaning on constant external proof. And this is where most people wobble. Just like the child who suddenly realizes the hand is no longer on the bicycle, panic sets in. You begin to doubt yourself. You may even fall back into old fears, thinking that something has gone wrong. But this is the essential moment. The silence is the test of balance. It's the moment where you prove to yourself that you can ride. Without this phase, You would never grow beyond dependency. You'd always be chasing signs rather than becoming the sign yourself. The stillness asks you to embody your alignment so fully that you no longer need confirmation. You know who you are, you know the frequency you're holding, and you trust it even when the external world appears empty. That is the graduation point, the transition from student to master, from seeker to creator. The silence is the moment the hand lets go, and what you do with that moment determines whether you stumble back into the old reality or glide forward into the new one. As this release happens, something else begins to stir inside you, an intensification of emotion that can feel overwhelming. One moment you feel unstoppable, flooded with inspiration and certainty, and the next you're overcome by doubt, fear, or sadness. This emotional roller coaster confuses most people because they assume strong negative feelings mean they've lost their alignment. But nothing could be further from the truth. These emotional surges are not evidence of failure, they are evidence that the shift is happening. They are the turbulence of transformation. Just as a rocket shakes most violently right before it breaks through the atmosphere, you too will feel the greatest inner turbulence right before you break into a new reality. What's happening here is profound. You are literally oscillating between two states of being. On one side is your old identity, clinging to survival, craving the familiar. On the other side is your new self, pulling you toward expansion, coherence, and possibility. The clash of these two timelines creates emotional waves inside of you. One day you feel anchored in the new reality, and the next you feel dragged back by the old. That fluctuation is not random. It is the human equivalent of quantum superposition, where you are existing between worlds. The nervous system interprets this as instability, and emotions spike as the body tries to hold on to what is safe and known. But the very presence of this turbulence is proof that you are leaving the old orbit. From a spiritual perspective, traditions across the world have always described this stage. Mystics call it the burning ground, the dark night, the storm before awakening. It is the moment when everything that cannot survive in the new reality rises to the surface to be released. Old doubts echo, buried fears re-emerge, and emotions you thought you had moved past suddenly flare up. They do not appear because you are failing. They appear because they cannot travel with you into the new frequency. They rise so that you can see them, feel them, and finally let them go. The emotions are not enemies. They are fuel. They are the final resistance that proves you are about to break through. The key is not to fight this turbulence, but to ride it. When you resist doubt, you feed it. When you collapse into fear, you recycle it. But when you observe these emotions as part of the recalibration process, they lose their grip on you. You stop identifying with them and begin to witness them as old echoes dissolving. Just as a storm eventually clears to reveal a bright sky, the surge of emotions always passes once the new frequency stabilizes. And when it does, you discover a depth of calm unlike anything you have known before. The turbulence is temporary, but the shift it delivers is permanent. So when the synchronicities stop and the emotional waves begin, remember this: the hand has let go, but not because you are unsupported. It has let go because you are ready. The wobble you feel is not weakness. It is proof that you are learning balance. The emotions that rise are not setbacks. They are the final shedding of everything that cannot follow you forward. And if you can trust yourself in this space, if you can keep riding even when the ground feels unsteady, you will discover that you no longer need signs to prove your connection. You will have become the alignment itself. You will have stepped fully into the frequency of your new reality. There comes a stage on this path where life seems to throw obstacles at you right at the very moment you're closest to a breakthrough. You've been consistent, raising your energy, feeling more aligned than ever, maybe even touching glimpses of the new reality you've been calling in. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, challenges appear. An unexpected bill lands in your lap. A relationship erupts into conflict. An opportunity that seemed certain slips away. Most people interpret this as failure. They think they've fallen out of alignment, or that the universe is testing them, as though some cosmic judge is deciding if they're worthy of moving forward. But the truth is far more empowering. The universe does not test you, it reflects you. What feels like a final exam is simply the last echoes of your old identity surfacing. It's not punishment, it's patterning. The subconscious is wired to equate the familiar with safety. So right before you leap into something new, it generates familiar scenarios to keep you anchored where you've always been. That's why the final test is never something brand new. It's a magnified replay of old fears, old doubts, old triggers. They show up not to block you, but to give you one last opportunity to choose differently. This is why the most important question you can ask when these challenges arise is not, "Why is this happening to me?" but "Who am I being asked to be right now?" Because the moment of choice is everything. If you react the way you always have, with fear, frustration, or collapse, you reinforce the old timeline. But if you respond with calm, coherence, and faith in the reality you've already claimed, you dissolve the old pattern once and for all. Think of it like a video game. Before you advance to the next level, you often face a final boss. That boss isn't new. It's simply a concentrated version of everything you've already overcome. The challenge is not proof that you're failing, it's proof that you're close. The bigger the echo, the nearer the leap. And if you can recognize it as a mirror instead of a barrier, you'll see that the so-called test is actually the last piece of evidence that your quantum shift is about to lock in. And then something remarkable happens. When you choose differently, when you stop reacting from the old self, your entire system begins to reset. It's almost as if your body exhales a tension you didn't even realize you had been carrying. The chaos gives way to clarity. The storm of emotions settles into stillness. This calm that arrives after the turbulence is not empty, it is alive. It is the embodied confirmation that your shift is real. Your nervous system moves from fight or flight into rest and integration. Your heart rate slows, your breath deepens, your mind quiets. What once triggered panic now feels strangely neutral. Problems don't vanish, but they no longer dominate you. That is the true signal of your transformation, that the outer world may still offer challenges, but your inner world no longer reacts as it once did. This calm can feel so unfamiliar that some people mistake it for stagnation. They confuse peace with boredom, assuming nothing is happening because there's no drama, no intensity, no constant confirmation. But this is the most sacred moment of all. The calm after the storm is the new baseline of your being. It's not the absence of movement, it's the presence of alignment. Think of an arrow pulled back on a bow. In that silent stillness before release, all the potential is already there, concentrated, waiting, ready. The calm is not the end, it is the poised readiness of a life about to accelerate. Spiritually, traditions across the world have spoken of this stage. In Zen Buddhism, it is Satori, a sudden glimpse of awakening where the ordinary feels extraordinary because you are seeing it without distortion. In Christian mysticism, it is the peace that surpasses understanding, a stillness that feels unshakable, even when circumstances appear unchanged. In all cases, it is the same truth. When the old identity dissolves and the turbulence passes, what remains is a profound inner coherence that cannot be faked. It is not something you create, it's what emerges when everything false falls away. And here's the most powerful part. This calm is not fragile, it is not temporary. Once you have tasted it, your body remembers it. Your nervous system learns that safety is no longer tied to survival, but to alignment. Your energy field amplifies that coherence, and the quantum field begins to mirror it back with new synchronicities, new opportunities, and new timelines that resonate with your elevated state. What once felt like chasing signs now feels like being a magnet for them. The silence that terrified you before now feels like the deepest proof that you've arrived. The stillness is no longer absence, it is confirmation. You realize that you don't need the universe to send you constant reminders anymore because you have become the reminder. You are the alignment, you are the sign, and from that state of inner calm, the shift doesn't just happen, it becomes your new reality. A breakthrough moment is powerful, but what truly matters is whether that breakthrough stabilizes. Without stabilization, the shift can flicker in and out. You may feel on top of the world one day, completely anchored in your new reality, and then suddenly the next day you're pulled back into doubt, fear, or old emotional habits. That back and forth can leave people questioning if their leap was even real. But what they don't realize is that stabilization is its own stage of the process, just as important as the leap itself. It's one thing to experience a glimpse of alignment. It's another thing to live from it consistently until it crystallizes into your daily reality. This is where true mastery begins, not in chasing the high of a quantum jump, but in embodying it so fully that it becomes your natural baseline. Neuroscience tells us that this is the work of neuroplasticity. Your brain is constantly wiring and rewiring itself based on repeated experience. Each time you embody your new frequency, each time you hold the state of being that matches your chosen reality, you strengthen those neural pathways. The more you return to coherence, the more automatic it becomes. At first, you may need to remind yourself to consciously bring yourself back into alignment through practices like gratitude, meditation, or simple presence. But over time, those reminders become less necessary. The brain adapts. The nervous system adapts. What once took effort becomes effortless. And just like learning to ride that bicycle, eventually you don't even think about balance anymore. You simply ride. The new state becomes who you are, not something you try to maintain. Quantum physics mirrors this process. When a wave collapses into a particle, it becomes observable reality. But that collapse has to stabilize, otherwise the system oscillates between possibilities. Your consciousness works the same way. The more consistently you broadcast the frequency of your desired reality, the more solidly it takes form in the physical world. At first, there may be static, flickers of the old self, echoes of the old patterns. But as you persist, the signal sharpens. It's like tuning an old radio. In the beginning, you catch bits of the station drifting in and out, distorted by static. But once you dial in the exact frequency, the sound becomes crystal clear and steady. That's what stabilization feels like, the moment when the signal of your chosen reality becomes your constant broadcast. Spiritual traditions have always spoken of this. Yogic philosophy teaches abhyasa, consistent practice, not perfection, not force, but returning again and again to the chosen state until it becomes natural. Christian mysticism speaks of walking by faith, holding the feeling of the new even when the outer world lags behind. Taoist wisdom calls it wu wei, effortless alignment with the flow of reality, a state where action is no longer struggle, but expression. In every tradition, the message is the same. Stability is not about control, it is about persistence, trust, and repetition until the new identity is no longer an act, but a way of being. The practical key here is deceptively simple. Stabilization doesn't mean doing more, it means being more. More consistent in your inner alignment, more anchored in your trust, more faithful to the frequency of your chosen reality, even when the evidence hasn't fully caught up yet. The outer world may take time to reorganize itself, but the inner world must stay unwavering. Gratitude practices, moments of coherence, daily rituals of trust. These are not about forcing change, but about reminding your nervous system what state you choose to live in. With every repetition, the brain wires it deeper, the body remembers it better, and the field amplifies it louder. And then you begin to notice something extraordinary. Life stops feeling like a series of random synchronicities you're chasing, and instead begins to feel like a complete reorganization of reality around you. Opportunities appear in ways that feel natural, not forced. People show up at the right moment, not as surprises, but as inevitabilities. Time feels different, less like a pressure pushing you forward, and more like a flowing presence you move through with ease. Miracles stop being rare exceptions and start becoming your normal. You stop asking whether the shift is real because everything in your life begins reflecting it back to you. The new state is no longer fragile. It is your foundation, and here is the ultimate truth of this journey. When synchronicities stop, it is not the end. It is the beginning of your graduation. The silence, the turbulence, the mirror of the final test, the calm after the storm, the process of stabilization, these are not random events. They are the universal rhythm of transformation. They are the steps every soul walks through when a new timeline is being born. The signs vanish not to scare you, but to free you from dependency. The challenges arise not to punish you, but to allow you to choose differently. The calm that follows is not stagnation, but the deepest proof that the shift has already happened. You are not waiting for the future to arrive. You are collapsing the future into now. You are not chasing signs anymore. You are becoming the sign, and the universe cannot help but reorganize itself around that. The silence you once feared is the clearest signal that your quantum shift is not coming. It is here. It is happening in you, through you, and around you. And the more you embody it, the more permanent it becomes. This is the invitation, not to experience a single leap, but to live in a state of ongoing expansion, where alignment, growth, and manifestation are your natural state. Because once you've walked through the silence, you never see it the same again. You realize it was never absence. It was always the beginning of everything you asked for.